are now listening to the fastest growing faith-based podcast that empowers, inspires, and motivates your walk with Christ. Ladies, don't you know you are fearfully and wonderfully made? You are far more precious than rubies. You are destiny shakers. Fellas, you are strong, visionaries, and mighty kingdom builders. Together, we are Virtue with Vision, the podcast. We discuss relationships, goals, life, and a whole lot of Jesus. Always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Let's tune into this week's episode. Welcome to Virtue with Vision, the podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lee Vance, here to remind you that you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Hey guys! Yo, this whole month of Christian Influencers Unite has been mind-blowing. Like, literally. I'm so excited to wrap up this 5th week with my good new friend, because as you guys know, I love keeping things open, transparent, and honest with my new friend, Nick Ruffin. Please say hi to everyone, Nick.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing tonight?
Thank you so much for joining in today and being a part of my podcast. I am truly humbled, and I thank you so much for accepting to be on the show. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And like we said earlier, it's just an honor to be a part. I'm excited for the conversation. I watched last week's and I'm just, like I said, we're going to have a fun time. We're going to have, the next hour is going to be on point.
Yes,
that's for sure.
Yes, it is. So tell everyone a little bit about you.
All right. So, like Mary said, my name is Nick Ruffin. I'm originally from Chicago, born and raised in the south suburbs. I'm currently in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've been married now for 10 years. My wife, Angela, and I, hey, babe, we have 6 beautiful children between us, all range from the ages, all range from the ages of 15 to 19, and all in between. Just like Mary, I have a podcast called Vantage Point Podcast, so we're going to be talking about that a little bit as well. That's me really, and I would be remiss to say give a shout out to my church family, because I'm sure some of them are going to be tuning in. So I am a partner and a piece and an integral awesome ministry that I'm in, Transformation Church. You may have heard of it.
Who hasn't? I'm sorry.
You may have heard of that church with our awesome pastor, Mike
Yes.
Todd. Yeah, a little small church in Tulsa,
Small.
you know.
Man, can I just say something about your pastor, man?
Oh, please do. Please do.
He is the one of, I've met him before, because he's actually came to my church. I think it was last year, for a one race conference or something like that we had, and he came and I got to take a picture with him, and I was like, oh my gosh, I took a picture with Michael Todd, oh my god, because I am a total fangirl of those who are really submitted to the Word of God. And I have to say, my God, on last week, I said he better set those people free today. Like, he played no games. Like,
no, not last
I
week.
had to tell my husband, I was like, you need to watch this. I was like, because I have never seen any pastor be that bold and still be like, and I'm still repping Jesus till the day I die.
Yeah.
That is one person that I know, if I am not having the best day, if I need my faith to be gathered really quick, if I need my faith to be gathered really quick, it's him. Like, he's just, I'm sorry, my little rant.
You're good. There's not too many pastors. And part of my story is I didn't grow up in church, but I've been in church since I was 16, serious since I was 23. and dead serious since probably 30. But
Dead serious, like serious,
um,
serious.
like serious, serious. But there are a lot of pastors out there, and I've seen many in my life, and there are very few that have that level of transparency and boldness.
Yes.
The one thing I tell people about Pastor Mike, and I serve at the church, and so when we were open pre-COVID,
Mm-hmm.
I spent time. I was up there quite a bit, and I would see him, walking the halls and coming and going and all of those things. And I tell people every time, it doesn't matter what you see him on, what you see him doing, what you see him saying or preaching. At the end of the day, he is by far probably one of the most humble,
Yes.
down to earth, regular guys that happens to be a pastor.
And
And
that's that
that's
point.
him.
That's the point
Yeah,
right there. That just happens to be a pastor. He doesn't put his platform above God, and
no,
that's what I
not at all.
appreciate. It's humbling
Oh,
to
yeah.
a point where I have to understand, or we both have to understand our
Hmm.
small beginnings, because a
Yeah.
lot of times when we have these beginnings, we can get frustrated when the platform is not there and we're
Yeah.
building, and you're like, well, dang, like, why does it seem like it happened for them overnight, and why is it
Yeah, yeah,
taking
yeah.
me 1,000 years? But
Hmm.
when you actually have a vision from God, and God reveals your purpose to you, you
Yeah.
understand that it is not about you and it's greater than you. There's benefit
Oh,
for
yeah.
you that's included, but
Hmm.
it's not about you. And once
Yeah.
you get yourself wrapped around that fact, I feel that that's when you allow God to actually do the work that he wants to do in you. We have to move ourselves out the way.
Oh, yeah. That's so true. And like I said, when I see him, talk to him, interact with him, because I've met people just serving at the church and just being around once you got, you see the shirt, you see the merch, and oh my God, you go to Transformation Church. Oh my God, have you met Pastor Mike? Have you? And I said, yeah, I mean, I've known him since we moved to Tulsa, really,
Right.
2013, 2012, and he's still the same guy. And I share this story just to me because it just stands out to me. And it was back in February of this year, and it was our grand opening weekend at our new location, which was formerly the Spirit Bank Event Center. And I mean, it's a lot going on. This is like a 2-day event, really a 3-day event if you count the ribbon cutting on Friday. And I mean, thousands of people traveling from all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
everything. And it's Sunday morning, and this is the day of this is what we did on Saturday was cool. What we did on Friday was great, but Sunday was the day that we were waiting for this big moment. And it's about 9 o'clock, hour and a half before service, and I serve in the Represent store, which is the merchandise store within the church.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in there getting ready. The volunteers are in there. We're all kind of doing our pep talk, and he walks by, and he just pops in, comes in real quick, and he says, "How's everybody doing?" Gives us a greeting, and literally took about 2 to 3 minutes, and I got it on video. Never posted it anywhere, just shared it with a few people. He literally took about 2 to 3 minutes to speak life into us
That's dope.
about serving in retail, because he said, one of the things he said is, people have been here all weekend trying to get this merchandise, and you're going to have people that come in here today, and we're going to be sold out of something.
Mm-hmm.
And how we show them the grace of God, how do we show them customer service and excellence, they will remember that
Mm-hmm.
more than the preaching, more than the worship. If they have a bad experience in this store, that will negate it
It
all.
sure
So I'm
will.
praying for you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thanking y'all for being here, because I know some of y'all were here late and early at the same time, or all day in some people's cases. And just to see him take, because I don't know where he was on his way to. I mean, it's an hour and a half before service. So he could be going anywhere, getting dressed, getting ready,
Right.
final prep, prayer, anything. But the fact that he took his time to come in there and just talk to us and pour into us that little bit, like, I really feel that that showed his humility and connection to people,
Yeah.
which I'll be honest, and I think a lot of people who are listening to this and will go back and listen can say we've all probably met a pastor or two
Huh.
that
Huh.
did not feel connected to people.
Nope.
And I feel like there's more connection between pastors and people than just the first letter. And I feel like, to meet a pastor who is not connected to people is almost like,
How?
how is that possible?
Hmm.
Like, how are you? It's almost like rock star level, right? Like you get a singer, you go to a concert, and yeah, they're performing, but are they really connected to you?
Right.
It's a show
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about TC. That's what I love about Pastor Mike and the whole staff at TC. That's just what you get. And watching him with his kids, watching him with his wife. I mean,
Yes.
it's an inspiration to see, and really challenges me just as a black man to be better. And he's 3 years younger than me,
Right. And he
so
challenges you
yeah,
to be the best version of yourself for your mate. And it's not that you're trying
yeah.
to compete or trying to be
Oh
better.
no,
It's that
exactly.
you're trying to be the best version of yourself for what you have and the situation and the
Yeah, yeah,
mate, the wife that you have, the children that you have. So I think a lot of
yeah,
times if we have the right example, we know what
yeah.
to follow. And
Amen.
a lot of times, and I know in my little generation, the millennials, we
Hmm.
we've seen we got to grow up with the broken homes, ones with
Yeah,
okay, my mom and dad are not together, they're divorced,
yeah,
or we don't know what it truly looks like for a mom and a dad to be married in a home long standing. So my mom had that,
yeah,
but I didn't. So it's well, I did, but in my later years, because my dad died when I was 12, so 13 up in my teenage years, I was a hot mess, but definitely strayed away from the Lord. But it was it was different because it was a single parent household. So when it comes to us wanting to get married, we're like, yeah, we want to get married, but we don't know if this gonna last. So I'm just gonna chill, try to stack these dollars, and keep it pushing. And it's kind of
yeah.
like, when do we have that togetherness? And I feel like even with the church that I'm at, the Faith Center in Tucker, Georgia, my pastor sets that perfect example of how you treat your wife, how you spend time with your kids outside of just being a pastor. When
Yeah.
he has that time for his children, he's like, he'll tell you, he'll be like, listen here, Saturdays are meant for my wife and my kids to have our family time, so hey, it's gonna have to wait. And to me, knowing that your family, your first ministry is your home, is your wife, is your children, that means everything, because everything else now falls into order. So to me, I feel like whenever it comes to people of God or Christian influencers that want to walk in their purpose and know what they are, they need to make sure their home is taken care of first. Um,
Yeah.
and it's not just your home, like with your wife and kids. No, I mean your home, meaning your temple, meaning your
Yeah.
spirit, meaning what are you feeding it? What are you watching? What are you listening to? How are you
Hmm.
maturing in the Word of God? So, why did you decide that you wanted to put your Christianity out there? Why publicize it? Because a lot of people like to
Yeah.
keep it private.
Yeah. I think I've been on both sides of that. I
Mm-hmm.
think, and like I said earlier, what drew me to church at 16 was actually basketball. Wasn't even Jesus, because I didn't know Jesus yet. And there was a gentleman in our neighborhood who went to a church, small church in Chicago, south suburbs, and he would, talk. He would see all the neighborhood kids, and we knew him, from the neighborhood. And he invited us one night. Hey, y'all want to come play ball on Friday? Uh, yeah, if
It's
it's in the gym,
basketball.
it's basketball. Yeah, of course. So about 15 of us went, and every Friday after we played, they do Bible study.
Mm.
And then the requirement to come back on Fridays was you had to go to church on Sunday.
Wow.
And so we would find a way, or he would pick us up. He met my grandmother at the time. I lived with my grandmother. he met my mom and met the family, and so we started to, go to church with him. And um, at that point, it was still very much, I'm just doing this to play basketball, and I'm not, you know,
He was
okay.
planting a seed, though.
Because
I like that.
oh, he totally was, because you mentioned kind of the broken homes in the generations. I mean, my parents divorced when I was 12, and I didn't have a very good view of my father at all,
Mhm.
to the point where there was a lot of hatred in me toward him, and it really jaded my view of God,
Mm.
because I didn't see God as a father. Father was a
Mm.
curse word to me. It was something that I couldn't fathom, a good father. Like, I couldn't
Wow,
fathom that.
that's good.
So to tell me about God, I saw God as the master of the universe. He's on the throne, and he's,
Sitting
or like
mighty
people like that,
high. The way we
sitting
think,
high. And
the
looking,
way that
this
is
Old Testament
portrayed.
God.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I saw
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Is this unreachable, unattainable being, is what I saw. And then as I got older and life happens, I started to develop a closeness with him. But just like Pastor Mike and a lot of people say, I was still trying to live my life and live the life God wanted me to.
Period.
And
Same place.
eventually, those two meet,
You got to make a
and
decision.
you got to make a choice, or he'll make it for you in some ways.
Mhm.
And so I went through a lot of struggles, insecurities, pornography, everything, cheating, all of those things, and really got to a point in my life where I had to make a choice of, what do I want to be? How do I want to live this life?
Mm.
Because it's the only one I have. And the first thing, even before I want to be a good husband, I want to be a good dad, I have to be a good Nick. I have to be connected to God in a way that, because what if I lost it all?
Huh.
That was like my question to me. What if I lost everything?
Mhm.
Who else would I have left?
Who else would you have left? That's good.
And God is the only constant that I could hold on to. And I just heard him at some, trust me, trust me, trust me. And now we fast forward to today, and I launched this podcast last year. And this is where it really got to me. And I'm getting to your answer, why put myself out there.
Mhm.
But when I get to this beginning of 2020, I launched this podcast last year, wasn't the best at it, very inconsistent, almost just stopped doing it completely. I go into January, and we do our 21 days fasting that we always do.
Mhm.
And I, first couple of days in, I'm like, all right, God, this podcast, we're about to do it, and da da da, and I'm on fire. I'm about to do it. And literally in the middle of that fast, he said, "Don't do anything until I tell you to.
Mm.
I need you to spend some time with me first." And I literally, for the next 4.5 months, committed to reading the Bible, being in worship, prayer, and really just feeding my soul the Word of God. And I got to about the middle of April, and he said, "Now you can do it."
Mm. That's good.
And that's part of the reason why I can be so bold and be out and post things and share and tell people, because I know what it's like to be on the other side.
That's
I know that he will have you if you just take those steps and be obedient. Because it's not complicated, it's not hard
it's really not.
to to really do it. Like, I even made this post once, and it was like this big algebra equation, and I said, God just wants you to get 2 + 2 first.
Facts. That's all he
He
wants.
don't want you to figure out the variables, because I know when that math, when they introduced letters into math, I was done. I just hated algebra. It was a wrap. But they, that's not. I think we complicate God
We
sometimes
do.
in that. Like, He wants us to have all these things in a row and all these things
He
together before
doesn't.
we really fully commit. No, we don't. He just wants you to say yes.
Mhm.
That's all he wants you to do. And yes, and your progressive step might be a leap. It might be a full on jump. And for somebody, it might be a crawl. It might be a roll. It might be, let me move my finger right here. Let me move my hand up a little
Yeah.
bit. Progress is progress, and that's all he cares about.
That's good
Uh,
right
but I
there.
would say that's where that comes from for me.
That's good. So, God has laid on my spirit that we're going to go into our first break. But when we come back, I want to talk about, of course, your podcast, Vantage Point. And then I want to talk about, you mentioned your insecurities or things that Nick was dealing with. And I want to know, like, what insecurities that you had to fight through. And I want to know the purpose of your podcast. Why the Vantage Point? Why is that a thing?
Okay.
So we are about to go to our first break. You are listening to Virtue with Vision with me, Mary Lee Vance. Don't just talk it, you gotta rock it too. What am I talking about? Virtue with Vision apparel. That's right, my t-shirt line. We not only know we're anointed, but we rock that anointed drip. We read that we should work like Ruth, have discipline like Esther, and pray like Hannah. Why not wear what you believe? Virtue with Vision apparel line believes that we not only read the word, teach the word, and speak the word, but we wear the word too. Go to www.virtuewithvision.com and get your drip today. Do you have a small business you want to advertise to the world? Just getting started with your business and need to get it out to the masses? Are you a known, established, and prosperous business looking for ways to advertise your brand? Virtue with Vision, the podcast, would love to partner with you. From skincare, apparel, insurance, real estate, we welcome all brands and organizations. All serious inquiries, please email virtuewithvision@gmail.com. Again, that's virtuewithvision@gmail.com today. And always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. A lot may know, many may not, but in 2019, I published my first book. Yes, your girl published her first book, Fleshly Date or Godly Mate. If you are a single lady out there who loves Jesus and desires to get married, this book is for you. If you purchase my book today, shipping is free, and I will sign it personally. Go to www.virtuewithvision.com and get your copy of Fleshly Date or Godly Mate today. The link will be in the show notes. Go get your copy today. Virtue with Vision is the #1 podcast that empowers, inspires, and motivates your walk with Christ. Go subscribe to this podcast and go tell a friend. If you need something to listen to while you're driving to work or cruising out on the town, this podcast is for you. We laugh, have fun, and get a little more acquainted with God each time. Virtue with Vision, the podcast, is available on all media platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Pandora, plus many more platforms. Subscribe today so you can check out all of my past episodes. Go subscribe now. You are now listening to the fastest growing faith-based podcast that empowers, inspires, Welcome back to Virtue with Vision, the podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lee Vance, here to remind you that you deserve God's best because you are God's best. I have Mr. Nick Ruffin. He has an amazing podcast, and he is from Transformers Church. Woo woo! Say hi to everyone, Nick.
Hey, how y'all doing?
So we were talking in the first segment about certain things that you had to struggle with and wrestle with until you had to make that decision, or God had to make it for you to get your life together. So Tell me about the insecurities that you had to deal with, and how did God heal those insecurities to make you confident versus insecure?
Okay. So I think for me, and I'll, it's kind of a two part. So one, a lot of those, for me, I would put a lot of blame on others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my first blamer or my accuser, who I would accuse, would always be my father. That would be the first one I would go to. That's how I was introduced to something like pornography. That's how I was introduced on, married life as this abusive life, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah.
And so growing up that way, I was always a shy kid. I didn't say much. Um, I had a cousin who would make nicknames for everybody, and he would call me Clam
No.
because I never said anything. I never talked. And so a lot of that was really just pent up um, anger, frustration, fear. And the first outlet or the first kind of growth I had actually came from sports. Sports was my first real outlet that let me be me,
Mm-hmm.
that let me kind of see myself as I'm good at something because I was told quite a bit I wasn't, especially by my father of, the times that we had interaction. It was, you're not good at this, or never giving me the accolade or the what you would expect a father to do. At a boy, proud of you.
Right.
And
The things
so
that you expect to
Mhm.
get from your parents as a child in order to have the
Exactly,
confidence now in yourself. So yes, I know.
exactly.
Absolutely.
And so what sports did for me was it helped unlock some of that, like, oh wow, I'm good at something. I can do this. I am talented in this. And then what quickly happened was I found out that there are people that are better than me.
Well,
So then here comes the insecurity yet again
mm-hmm.
of, not being picked for teams, not doing, these things, not being with that crowd of people, not starting and all of those things. And then I think that really took me back into this mindset of what am I searching for? What am I searching for? And it really got me into this mindset and a lot of those snares from younger, especially like, and I love Pastor Mike's message because I can relate to
Listen.
that introduction and that master class of what that does to your life because it
It's
gives
a
you such a
gateway.
skewed view of relationships, women, everything.
Man, when I tell you
And
that got my whole life together,
hmm
yeah, like
yeah,
I was sitting there like, man, like I've
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it almost cost me my
yeah.
marriage. It multiple times almost cost me. And I love my wife dearly because she's stood with me and she's once I realized how she could help me
Mm,
because I was always in the mindset that I have to do this by myself. I have to figure this out. And the more I try to figure it out, air quote, the more I messed it
yeah.
up. And I ended up, it was 2018, and I went to a seminar put on by New Life Ministry called Every Man's Battle. And it dealt with sexual integrity, all of those things. And when I tell you that was such a life changing and life giving experience for me, it really made me look, it made me view God differently because I know I was still holding on to that father moniker as a negative thing and I couldn't
Yeah.
just I couldn't correlate good and father. And I'm a very logic thinking person.
Mm, me
So
too.
things like faith, speaking in tongues, all of those things did not come natural to me. Some people it just comes natural to them and they just blah, they have the faith of mustard seed. I was like, well, look, here's what I'm saying. My faith is about this big. My bank account is about this big, and
Yeah.
I don't fully understand how I can take, and that was me. And I would literally psych myself out of faith
Yeah.
in a lot of areas of
Because
my
we,
life.
as logical thinkers, have to have every step figured out before we actually do the steps, because we've already
Yes.
thought about the steps before we get there.
Oh yeah.
That used
And
to be me
what I
too.
yeah, and what I realized is God is, the scripture that talks about he's a lamp post under your
Yes, he
feet.
is.
He gave me a very good, a very just mind blowing visual of what that scripture actually meant. And the picture is I'm in this completely dark room, and there's this light that shines from the top. And the light's probably about as big as a baseball, let's say. Not that big. And he says, that's where I want you to step. Now go step again. I'm going to move it a little bit more. But the room is still completely dark and I don't see anything. And that's faith.
That is.
Can you move in the darkness with this light that I'm giving you? Because I'm not going to open up the whole room to
Not.
you.
He's
I
not.
can't do that. So here's what I'm going to give you.
And I think
your faith gets you.
And I think that's very important that you said that. A lot of times we don't really understand what we walk by faith and not by sight. The meaning we are not supposed to know what comes next. We don't see what comes next. We just trust that God has us. And I think a lot of times we get lost in the trust factor because we don't trust God the way that we are truly supposed to. I call it worldly faith. It's kind of like I have this high hopes of something that may or may not happen, and if it doesn't happen on my time and I can't submit my time to God's time, then I might as well throw it away because I'm not an overnight success. So to me, I feel like that's not of the faith that God gives us. The faith that I feel that God gives us requires hard work. It requires work. He wants to know if you're going to be steadfast. He wants to know if you're going to be diligent. He wants to know if you're going to have perseverance. He's going to know if you're still willing, while you're working on your passion and your dream, are you still willing to serve me in my house? Are you still willing to tithe? Are you still willing to be submissive? Are you going to serve unto me as unto the Lord? Like, hello? There's things that I feel that we miss as Christians, and I feel like we have to learn how to be a servant first. And a lot of times, once we get that down of, I am a servant of Christ first, and I'm going to serve in his house, there's absolutely no way God is not going to bless his child that has been diligent and faithful to him. We just want to ask God for these things. God, give me a car. God, give me a house. God, give me a promotion. God, give me a job. God. And God is like, what is you going to give me? Like, bruh. Like,
right.
It's like you're draining him, and you're draining a relationship that you haven't even truly created because you think he's just a God that gives, and you don't, and there's no requirement for you. So my thing is when it comes to faith, and I know for me and how I address it, I'm like, God, I don't know what you're doing, but I know that if you have directed my paths, I know that I've been doing what I've been supposed to be doing. I know that I've been serving. I know that I've been tithing, not just like, hey, here's a little quarter. Nah, I tithe my full 10%, unto the Lord. But, I give because I need to make sure that my heart is in the right place. I give because I serve because I don't want to ever think that because I have a platform, I'm above whoever else. I want to make sure that my heart is in the right place. And that's what God wants his people to have. The right heart so he can show his glory through you. My faith walk has been transformed. It's not the same faith that I had when I was 20 years old or 20, even I'm 28 now, so even a year ago it isn't the same. I think I have learned to be more submissive to his time because he's pushing patience on me. I don't even pray for patience because I don't want it. But patience is a virtue.
Some dangerous prayers.
Yes, see, that's where you get a little dangerous. I'm like, God, I'm not going to pray for that because you're going to test me, and I know that my patience has a limit.
Yeah.
So I'm learning that I have to be patient enough to trust that he has me every step of the way, and that he's not about to just bring me this far to be like, nah, Mary, I ain't got you no more. Sorry, peace out.
No,
I've never known God to do that.
no, never.
And just submitting my time. Why do you think that we don't like God's time, even though it's perfect and pleasing?
I think the biggest reason is that his time isn't ours,
Oh,
and I think we see things as linear, and not to say that he doesn't, but I feel we're so caught in our linear thinking and I've heard it said like this is kind of this, we're the microwave generation,
huh.
we're the microwave
Yes, we
society,
are.
because we can all pick somebody or multiple people who have had overnight success, we'll call it, or something that just started and this,
Mm-hmm.
it became this. You think about Facebook, you think about Apple, all of these things that people all of a sudden have done, and we get impatient with God's
We
time,
do.
but the funniest thing about God's time is it's always on time.
Huh. This,
It's never late. Like you can never say God was late.
you
Even
can't.
even with Mary and Lazarus, if you were been here, but he right on time,
Huh.
girl. Like you just give him a minute. He's here. He's right here.
He is.
And
Yeah.
I've learned that so much, really, even in a short amount of time, just to watch God's time works, because I've been thinking about this concept of borrowed time,
Mm-hmm.
and that is what in essence we are. God gives us time. We're born, and we count up in age, but God is counting down,
Right.
and He's counting down to a reunion with us. And so we have these moments to do what we need to do, and it's all in his time. So me launching a podcast at 35, when someone
Yeah,
says,
you
"Oh, you
look
could have been
younger
doing that
than
since you
that,
was
Nick. All
20."
right,
Oh,
35.
yep. Actually, just turned 37, but still, they just would say like, "Oh, I mean, why do that now?" Like, it's not about why doing it now. It's
Why
about
not?
let God do what he is meant to do. Because
Right.
quite honestly, and you're talking about from earlier, I can say in God has probably saved me from some things by turning down certain things or not starting it based on where I was spiritually,
Absolutely.
heart posture, mindset, whether it be promotions or other things, like, because really the podcast was something given to me a couple of years ago, like about a year or two before I actually started it.
Mm-hmm.
And I procrastinated and didn't do it, and would have failed miserably at it at that point. Um, but knowing that his time, because it's funny, like we'll think he's late, but then in the moment of it happening, you'd be like, man, God, like, okay, like I see what you were doing right there. I
Right.
see what you did there. I see
I was like, all right, well,
facts,
maybe I
God. Like,
was a little
okay,
out of
maybe
control.
maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was
What was
wrong.
that?
But
Absolutely. I know that I've done
I
that every single time.
oh yeah, I feel like that's why people, and there's this level of impatience that sets in.
Yes.
But I love the story of Noah and building the ark, because God never told him when the rain was coming.
Didn't.
Like that is the epitome of operating and being obedient in God's
Yeah.
time. Noah just kept building. God didn't say, okay, you got 2 more days, you got 3 more days, you got 3 more minutes. He was like, I'm gonna build it. I don't know. And the funny part about that is Noah was an architect,
He was not.
not an engineer.
Mm-mm.
So God can literally ask you to do something you've never done, give you the ability and the resources to do it,
Yep.
and still be in his time and still be as glorious as he wants it to be. And that's what I love. Like Noah didn't ask or question anything; he just did it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just watching him move in God's time, like that's where I feel like, for most people, that impatience could set in, because Noah could have been impatient, like, okay, man, this boat is big, like uh, when we coming, bro? Because I'm tired and I'm
Like,
old,
I already didn't built enough, Jesus. I'm
Like,
tired.
how much a boat do you want? I mean, this thing bigger than the Titanic, even though he didn't know the Titanic back then, but still, that thing is bigger than the Titanic.
Right.
And so it's just, I encourage anybody who feels like, oh my God, I don't have enough time, or it's too late to do this, or it's not, I don't have enough time. Like, ask God first before you assume what his clock looks like.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what his clock looks like.
Don't.
You know what yours looks like, you know how old you are, you know your resources, but God will literally transform something in you and through you that will exceed expectations and will always be right
Come
on
on,
time, for sure.
preacher. Come on. Preach the word of God. Preach it. I think that hit it right on the head. I mean, Noah had to keep building despite people calling him crazy. Despite,
Okay.
why are you building this? What are you doing? And
Mm,
your obedience has to trump out the noise. There is
yeah.
always going to be someone that is going to ask you and question your motives, question your vision, question your purpose,
Yeah.
as if they are the ones that gave it to you.
Yeah.
You have to understand, if God has truly given you a vision, He's given you a clip of what your future looks like. He's given you a plan. He's given you purpose to start. It does not matter. And I just posted this on my Facebook. I said it doesn't matter if you get 1 like, 2 likes, 1 listener, 0 listeners. It doesn't matter. If
Yeah.
that is something that God has placed on the inside of you, let God do
Amen.
whatever work that He needs to do. You just keep going. You just keep being patient. You just keep being diligent. In due
Hmm.
time, God will show you the very reason why you're doing this very thing. He will show you
Yeah.
every reason. And then you'll
Yeah.
be like, all right, man, I guess you was right. Like, I'd be like,
Yeah.
dang, God, why you gotta, you ain't gotta, like, just throw it in my
Show
face
off
like that.
stuff,
Like, jeez. Because we think that our time, it always gets to that point. And I tell people all the time, I have my places of contentment where I'm good. I'm like, I'm still at this job. I'm still doing this business. I'm still working on these things. I'm still doing all of the things. And yes, am I tired some days? Am I frustrated
Oh
some
yeah.
days? Am I irritated with Jesus some days? Yes. I am a person that gets irritated with the Lord, and I tell him that I'm irritated.
Yeah.
That's how real my conversations are. I'm like, look here, Jesus. She's
Yeah.
irritated. I can't. This today, no. How are we going to fix this? What do you want me to do? Sometimes he's just like, can you just be still? I'd be like, I don't even like that verse for real. Like, I don't want to know. I don't even like that verse for real. But I have to understand, and I come back to my submissiveness, and of course I repent, and I'm like, you know what, God, you're right. It's not my time. I know that whatever you have for me is going to blow my mind. That's why I have to wait. I
Yeah.
understand that.
Oh yeah. You know what? I love what you said because some people, some Christians, people think like you can't be that raw with
Oh,
God, like you can't be that honest with Him. But like even Jesus was that honest with His Father before He went to the cross. He was like, "Dude, is there another way I can do this? Like, that I really don't want to do this, but if this is your will, then this is what I'll do."
mm-hmm.
And of course there's frustration. There's going to be moments in the grind of doing what you're doing and serving and fulfilling purpose. Like it never was meant to be easy. Never was. And I think that that's something that it's a freeing thing to do,
Yes.
to be quite honestly, because I think too many Christians hold on to their frustrations with the Lord, and then that frustration turns into bitterness, and then the bitterness turns into
Resentment.
I'm out, God. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
resentment, and then the resentment is I'm chucking deuces, God. I'm done with you.
And the truth
And
is,
it's like
God just he already knows you're
you
frustrated.
already know you're frustrated. Just say
I'd
it.
be like, listen, Jesus, today me and you are not cool. This is why we're not. This is
Oh yeah,
why. And
we just ain't cool.
then
I'm not talking.
and then he's just like, okay, are you done or are you finished?
You good now? Are you good
Because
now?
I have some things I need to say.
Oh,
then
yeah.
it's like he just humbles your little spirit because you try to
Hmm.
get, a little bold. And I'd be like, you know what? I'm not bold at all. I'm a whole punk out here. You're right, Jesus. Like, I'm a whole punk. Because
I just
sometimes
feel
I
like,
have to submit myself. I have to
yeah,
understand that it's not my time. It's not it. I just have to keep being diligent. I have to
yeah,
continue pressing. I have to
yeah,
continue to understand that this is greater than me. It's not about me. There's benefits for me, but it's not
yeah,
about me. And learning that has been very hard. It's not
yeah. Oh,
difficult
yeah.
because I am a part of the popcorn generation. I want things
Hmm.
happen today, not
Oh, yeah.
yesterday, but today, right now, in this instant.
Yep.
And if it's not done, we have problems.
Yep.
So
Facts.
I am going to
Facts.
go to another short break. And then we're going to come back and we're going to encourage the people before we wrap up today's show. So you are listening to Virtue with Vision, the podcast with me, Mary Lee Vance. Don't just talk it, you gotta rock it too. What am I talking about? Virtue with Vision Apparel. That's right, my t-shirt line. We not only know we're anointed, but we rock that anointed drip. We read that we should work like Ruth, have discipline like Esther, and pray like Hannah. Why not wear what you believe? Virtue with Vision Apparel line believes that we not only read the word, teach the word, and speak the word, but we wear the word too. Go to www.virtuewithvision.com and get your drip today. Virtue with Vision is the #1 podcast that empowers, inspires, and motivates your walk with Christ. Go subscribe to this podcast and go tell a friend. If you need something to listen to while you're driving to work or cruising out on the town, this podcast is for you. We laugh, have fun, and get a little more acquainted with God each time. Virtue with Vision, the podcast, is available on all media platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Pandora, plus many more platforms. Subscribe today so you can check out all of my past episodes. Go subscribe now. Welcome back to Virtue with Vision, the podcast. I'm your host, Mary Lee Vance, here to remind you that you deserve God's best because you are God's best. So this is our third and last segment, and I have Nick Ruffin here. Nick, it has been so awesome to connect with you. I feel like this is a beautiful Christianhood ship that is formed.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
I thank you so much for being a part of my show.
No problem.
I want to definitely open the floor up to you a little bit, and whatever God has placed on your heart to share with the people, go ahead and share it to encourage them that may be a little down in their faith, that may be facing insecurity. And I mean, if you guys are struggling with pornography, I highly suggest that you go and listen to Transformers Church. Or Transformation Church. Sorry, you guys are not Transformers, but, well, technically you are. But Transformation Church with Michael Todd this past week, it'll gather your life quickly. Yes, quickly. In that manner, it will gather your whole entire life.
Yes.
So I'm going to open the floor to you, Nick, and just encourage the people out there that may be a little low in their faith, maybe just a little frustrated.
Yeah. I think this year has been probably one big frustration for a lot of people, and I think the biggest thing that I can say, and it's probably like a sneak peek to my end of year series from my podcast, but thinking about perspectives and what perspective can you take from the situation, whether it's COVID-19, whether it's your insecurities, whether it's your walk with the Lord, relationships, like whatever your perspective is, the first thing I would say is you have to meet that perspective head on before you can get to the promise, before you can get to redemption. Like you have to have the vision to acknowledge where you are, whatever that is, whatever those struggles are, because the real thing is the real truth with it. Your feelings are real.
Yes.
They're valid.
Mm-hmm.
They're yours.
Yep.
And if anybody tells you they're not, then your second step is probably not to talk to that person anymore. Be quite honest, because anybody that tries to deny or skirt away your feelings and your insecurities are not really speaking life into you.
Not.
They're just perpetuating your insecurity. So I think being able to identify and acknowledge those things are your first step. And then once you're able to take those, once you're able to identify them, now you have to cast those onto the Lord. You have to bring them to Him, because that's the only true validation and redemption you're going to get from those feelings. And I know for me, that relationship is above any relationship. It's above because all relationships flow from that one. When God is truly the center of what your ultimate being is, your ultimate purpose on earth, it's literally the guiding light to what I do. And that not to say I'm perfect, because I'm
We are
not. I'm gonna
not.
drop the ball just like everybody is.
Very
But
imperfect.
the great thing about God and Jesus is He's not asking you to be perfect.
Mm-mm.
He's just asking you to be authentic. He's asking you to be you. He's asking you to give Him an opportunity to transform you. Because Christ, being Christian, being Christ-like does not mean being perfect. It means living a life that is glorifying God. And I was prepping for my message tomorrow for my podcast, and I came across this quote by the Bible Project, and they literally said that Christ became what we were, what we are, sin. He became that on the cross so that we have the opportunity to become Him.
Yeah. Mm.
We literally have the opportunity to become Him if we choose to do it. And whatever your insecurities is, and I love when Pastor Mike says this, it's like God doesn't care. He will use
All of
anybody.
anybody in any state and however you are.
It doesn't matter.
Mm.
People, church and God is not looking for you to get right and then come to Him.
Mm-mm.
He is not. Everybody, if you look at the disciples, you look at who He interacted with. I mean, Paul, for goodness sake, was murdering Christians. Let's
Period.
just call it. He's a serial killer. I mean, basically, is what he was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was the worst of humanity in some respects. And God literally, Jesus came to him on a road in the middle of his mess, by the way, because he was on his way to do what he was doing. And God literally came to him in the form of Jesus in the midst of his action and said, I need you to come with me. I have a purpose and a plan for you. So if God can literally take someone at that level in our mind, in our mind, because sin has no level, but in our mind, we would equate a murderer,
With
in our natural mind.
right.
He can take him and make him the greatest unifier in the church.
Yeah.
And I love how Jesus says that we would do even greater works than him.
Oh, that's good.
When I when I really thought about that, when I really put that into context, and the Bible even says that this book only contains some of what he did and
Some.
how he did,
Yes.
and I will still do greater works
Than him.
than him.
Hmm.
So that's me in my broken self, in my progressing self, will still move and inspire and motivate and enlist the world really, to do greater works. So my encouragement is I don't care how old you are, I don't care how deep you into it. You could be high on the blunt right now, you could be drunk off the yak right now, you could have just left her bed right
Come
now.
on.
That God literally can still come to you in the moment on your way, in the middle of that high, in the middle of the buzz, and say, hey, I need you because you have purpose in your life. And I know that I've dealt with it where you start to question what that purpose is. You start to question if it's even legit. I encourage you, just get some time with God. You don't have to go pray the heavens down. You don't have to go in your prayer closet for 12
You
hours, and
don't.
you ain't got to do all that.
You don't.
You
You
don't.
really
It's good
don't.
if you do, and all praise and to the people that do. That's great. I mean, there's a time and a
Yes, there
place.
is.
But in the simplest of simple terms, just go to him and ask him what it is you want from me.
Yeah,
And he will very simply tell you what it is he wants. Be in relationship with him. That's all he
that's
wants.
all he wants.
And the rest will come. You have to, just with any relationship, though, you have to give it time, you have to give it effort, and you have to be willing to accept your role in that relationship because we all play a
Jesus.
role in the relationship we have with God. We all do. And the minute we realize what that role is, I mean, the exchange that you get, the exchange back and forth that you start to get with him, I mean, it will be life changing, life giving. And then the best part about it is, and I love this, that life, that purpose, it ain't even for you.
It's not.
It ain't for you.
It's
It's
not.
about you, but it ain't for you
Mm-mm.
because your freedom and transformation and testimony will go liberate other people
Yeah.
to give theirs. And you literally can be the key to unlocking somebody else's purpose if you unlock yours. And I really feel that is the the best thing I can tell somebody, even in this moment where you just don't know what 2020 is going. You ready for 2020 to be over? You ready? Like been ready? Like since March 1st, whenever you first heard the words COVID. Like that's a curse word now. Wait,
Right.
what?
Right.
But I encourage you, instead of rushing this year away, take some perspective because a lot of people have learned a lot about themselves, about each other, about all of what we are willing to do because it's not that God is sitting there on the throne just why ain't he moving on COVID? Why ain't he do don't question that part. But what is God doing in the midst of the pandemic that you need to latch on to?
Huh.
In the midst of despair, in the midst of political whatever. And you feel how you feel about politics, you feel there is this is a moment in time that God is getting people's attention and there's a reason for it.
There is.
And I would hate for people to be like, let me get past this 2020 and you miss the
Missed the
message.
message. You missed the blessing.
You
You
missed it.
missed the miracle. You missed the wonders.
Yep.
You missed the work. Because I feel like God is about to.
Yeah.
But
And if you haven't caught it, you still got time. It's only
it's,
July.
yeah,
You
you
got
have
time.
time. I thank you so much for being a part of my show, and thank you so much for encouraging the people. I want to make sure that I pray for you briefly before we wrap
Yes.
up the show. God, I thank you so much for your son Nick, God, and the the power that you have on the inside of him, God. I pray that you strengthen it. God, I pray that you continue to give him the boldness to speak your word, oh God. I pray that you continue to give him the boldness and the confidence to have him know that he is changing lives all around him, God. I pray blessings over his podcast, God. I pray that you continue to blow his mind out of control this in this season that he's in, oh God. God, show him the vision that you briefly showed him. Have it manifested on earth through his podcast. Allow him to be able to change lives. Allow him to have lives come to you, oh God. Allow him to show your glory, oh God. Thank you so much for everyone who listened to this podcast, oh God, this evening. I pray right now that anyone that's under the sound of my voice, that they are able to seek God and know who God truly is, and are able to get a great relationship with him, to know that he is really a good father. We love you, God, and we lift your name, and we give your name all the honor and praise in Jesus' matchless and mighty name. Well,
Man.
that wraps up today's show. You have just listened to Virtue with Vision, the podcast with me, Mary Lee Vance. You do the powers and motivate Christ. Virtue in the walk into this week winning in virtue. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Virtue with Vision is available on all major platforms. That's right, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and many more. Subscribe so you can check out all of my past episodes. And always remember, you deserve God's best because you are God's best. Have an awesome week.